Is that grass? You been toking up again in here?
Oh yeah, guns, weed. You were tripping balls.
I'm sick of your disrespect. Tell me the truth. That's an order.
Welcome, guys.
Yo, yo, yo.
Welcome to a Life is Strange review. Now, we are going to do something a little bit different from the usual reviews that we do. Well, it's a little bit different in the sense that we're going to make it a little bit more... Yeah, we're going to make it a little bit more extensive, try to explain a few more things in the review so that it's not just a quick thing. This is actually a suggestion from April, and I think it's
I just find you get a better scope.
Yeah, you'll understand a bit more of the game, because to be honest, I know like there's a lot of reviewers out there that don't go too deep into it, but I think we won't go super deep, but enough for to give you a little bit more information.
The points that you want to know and what makes you decide whether to purchase it.
Yeah, so let's get straight into it. So, let's talk about the story. Now, for us to really talk about the story, there's going to be some spoilers. So what we'll do is on the screen, there'll be a spoiler alert text.
Yeah,
before the spoiler comes on. And after we finish talking about the spoiler, then the text will come off. So you can mute this whole section.
Yeah, if you don't want to hear it.
If you don't want to hear, but story. So basically, the story really is about Max, the main character, trying to stop a storm from destroying her town. I think that's what this episode tries to set up anyway. That's what it tries to say. This is what she has these powers for. So Max has...
First we should explain, Max's power is she is able to reverse time, but only a certain limited amount of time.
So it's only a certain limited bit of time, and if you go over that time period, like on the while you're actually playing it, it actually hurts her in some way. Like this, that's actually a feature that they said. But so really, she has this power to rewind time, and the story is that the bigger story is that there's a storm coming towards the town that she lives in, and I have a feeling it's going towards we have to save the town.
It's hinted at the start of the game, but not specified.
Yeah.
But the rest of the episode sort of goes away from that and goes in its own path. So it's sort of setting up not only that, but the backstory of all the characters, the backstory of things to come. So it kind of... With that, it tries to set up a lot of things and then gets to the point of what the next episode will be about. So because of that, the story's a bit slow, it takes a little while to get into. It can seem a bit repetitive when you rewind a certain amount of time and then have to listen to the teacher ramble on and stuff. And it's quite, as far as it goes, I would say, it's pretty slow in terms of the story.
Yeah, so, really, because it's a choice-based game, it's all about how these choices are going to affect you later on in the story. And, like April was just saying, a lot of the stuff, it's slow because a lot of the stuff is just set-up stuff. There's a lot of things that you do in the beginning of the story, or beginning of the episode, that say, this will have consequences later on in the story. So, really, so the story is about consequences of your choices and your actions, and... Also, I felt like the story at the beginning, like episode 1, was hinting at a lot of themes like bullying, friendship between the characters, and abandonment. Really, actually, for a certain character, Chloe, who Max left, just randomly. She just
I think her family moved.
Yeah, her family moved. So that's something that the story plays upon. So. There's a bigger picture, which is the storm, and then there's these little character arcs and stories, which of course are going to tie into the big story in some way. I think we're both in agreement that this is just a setup episode, really, for later on.
Get your punk asses in there now! Don't even try to run. Nobody.
So characters. Max is the main character. She's a shy. Confused character, I felt, throughout the first episode. That's the understanding I got of her character. She doesn't seem to know exactly what she wants to say sometimes, and sometimes she doesn't stand up for herself in certain situations.
Yeah, no, definitely. It feels kind of like it's almost like when they made it, they were like, okay, we want to make a girl that a lot of teenagers can relate to. And I personally find, because of this, she's quite a boring main character. I don't find her very... I mean, yes, it's good to have different ranges of characters. You don't always want the happy-go-lucky kind of character. But her character, I just find, is very boring. And again, because it's decision-based games, it's based on your decision. But because of that, it makes her personality quite flat. her like non-ability to make decisions, then when she does make decisions, and like there's a lot of like little things like where she'll talk about characters behind their back and say things which very much is just meant to set up how she feels about characters, but it still doesn't feel very nice. And I find as a character she's not, I personally don't find her very easy to relate to. Maybe some people do, but overall I just find as a character she's just very boring. She doesn't really do much. Maybe in future episodes we'll learn more, but the only real thing that I find interesting is the fact that she has her powers. But besides that, there's nothing really that interesting. Like, we're told she's meant to be really good at photography, but we don't see any of her really good photography pieces. We don't see any of that. She doesn't have a general drive for anything, which is fine, because that's part of life. But she just doesn't seem to have much of a personality at all.
Yeah, I think that's an issue that game stories sometimes have when it's a choice-based game, because they're trying not to, so to say, they're trying to let the character kind of mold the character,
the
main
the
character
Max
that you want. But then the problem is that because of that, the so to say, the character profile becomes very general, very clean slate type of thing, where then you kind of lay on your expectations for the character to do specific things.
Even saying that, like, for example, the Walking Dead series, that Telltale game, I found that the characters in that, I felt like I still could feel their personality over it. And, like, when you went down certain routes, you could sort of see the personality shaping. In episode 1, there's not really any shaping of that. It's still very general. There's not much about Max. Like, there's not really much shaping in general, in my opinion. And yeah, so she's very shy. Maybe that's what they want to build on in future episodes. So I'll let it slide for that. But if she's like this in future parts, I know I can just see the story getting a bit tedious, a bit boring.
Yeah, well, also like so to say with her best friend, so to say, is she her best friend? Chloe. She comes in a little bit later on in the episode. She's what comes up for about the abandonment. Like she comes with that theme, so to say, to the storyline, which is that of course Max moved away and left her, and she felt vulnerable and so on and so forth. And Chloe really is like the complete opposite of Max, so to say. She's talky. She's a rebel, really. She doesn't really listen to anybody. She doesn't seem like that type of character who would listen to anybody, really.
Yeah, I mean, her character, I think Chloe's character in general is a lot more interesting. Because the thing is, you meet a lot of different characters. Some of them you don't really speak to, some of them you do. The main characters you really talk to is, let's see, naming off my head, Chloe, Victoria, and that dude. I can't remember his face. And so, yeah, I would say maybe Chloe's a bit more, there's a bit more to her, but at the same time you don't really see much of all the characters for them to really stick as much. I mean, Chloe sticks because, for one, her hair, I guess it's blue hair. She's sort of she has quite a deeper storyline. Like, you learn a lot more about Chloe's backstory than you do about Max's.
About Max's, yeah.
And even the other character, Victoria, you sort of, although they don't go into much detail, you still hear quite a bit about her, and you sort of get how Max feels towards her, and you see who she is. I don't really understand how they're going to set up with that and where they want to go with that. But yeah.
Spoiler, but yes, Victoria is the bully. Depending on your choices, she stays the bully until the end of the episode, I'm pretty sure, because if you're not nice to her on a specific bit of the story.
But I don't know whether she specifically bullies Max. Like, yeah, she's a bit mean to Max, but does she bully Max?
True. Well, anyway, that's, to be honest, for us, those were like the three kind of standoutish characters. Yeah, I mean, and also Chloe's dad as well, the security guard.
Yeah, her stepdad.
Yeah, the stepdad, sorry. He also played a part in it in the sense that he always felt like this over-looming shadow over the choices you're making, so to say.
He's sort of introduced as a villain.
Yeah, so he is kind of the, this is the bad guy, don't mess around with him type of thing. And some of the choices that you make either completely make him hate you, or
I think either way, even though you were given the choice, I think no matter what you decide, he's going to hate you at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, so he's obviously going to be, it seems like he's going to be the villain of the story.
But characters in general, like the rest of them, I find they're all kind of again, quite flat. You're not introduced to many of them. Like, you have her other friend who you didn't even mention because, as you can see, she's that uninspiring.
Yeah, I can't even remember.
The one who's sort of like the one who's tired all the time, who you can tell is stressed out, working too hard, cries on her own, you know. And so it's sort of, it feels more like, rather than characters being actual people, it feels more like they're just a theme.
Yeah.
That's what they are. The characters are a theme, not an actual person. So it's kind of hard to really feel much for many of the characters when it's just meant to show you a certain theme. Like you said, Chloe's quite a rebel, but she also shows the sort of teenager going through a hard time, going through sort of domestic violence, and it sort of touches on, it feels like all these characters set up on themes, which it will be interesting to see them go deeper, but I'm not sure how they're going to fit in all these big themes in enough space and enough time in each episode to really get a scope and a feel for these characters. So at the moment I would say the characters are very underdeveloped, but it is episode 1, but I can't really see how they're going to develop them all in next episode, so it will be interesting to see that. So,
gameplay. Like we mentioned a little bit before in the story part of the review, this is a choice-based game with, of course, your choices making some sort of ripple in the wider story. So with Max's power, like, it's not necessarily, when I came into this game, I thought that you could just use it wherever and whenever. I didn't, because I hadn't watched a lot about the game, because I was just trying to, so that I'm not expecting too much. But it's more that the rewind feature, like her power comes in at specific moments, specific conversations you have, or like, yes, settings. Then you can actually use her power to do something differently, or to find out how things would have worked out differently if you had chosen the other option. I mean, for me, I felt the controls were quite simple. They weren't too complicated to get a hang of. But with the choices thing, there were a few times where it felt like the game was kind of holding my hand, saying you need to go in this specific direction. Because like there was a specific time. Spoiler is that when I didn't save Chloe from her stepdad, it then, like, Max was saying, oh, maybe I should rewind and do that again.
But to be fair, she does say that at the end of every.
Yeah, I know, but it felt as though it was like the developers was trying to make you doubt yourself, so to say.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So a lot of the times, it felt that my hand was being held and saying, you need to kind of rethink that choice. You need to kind of go the other way because it's a little bit better that way.
I feel though the reason why they did that is because to sort of add some more weight to the decisions.
Yeah.
But even so, the problem, because one of the things I find the problem with this game is, does your decisions actually have any weight to them? And what happens, like, they say, will there be consequences? And there's a lot of that in this game. There will be consequences, there will be consequences. But you don't really see many of the consequences at all. And so because of that, you don't really have a sense of, oh my gosh, what I decide is final. Especially because then you can rewind and change that decision however many times you want. And I feel like that's why they add in that bit, which is alright in itself. But I feel like it definitely takes away the urgency of making a decision and making you decide what to do. And I found, especially at the end of the game, when you look at your results compared to others, when we looked at it, a lot of them were people picked the same decision. People chose to go usually for the same thing. And I don't know, in terms of decisions, I find there's not really much variety that you can really go for. And, I mean, you have the decisions, but at the end of the day, it still feels like whatever you're going to decide, it's going to get you to a similar point. Like, for example, if you upset a character, it still feels like, regardless of what you do, they will be upset with you later.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see in future episodes, maybe how they work on these and how they affect you. But at the moment, I'm not really sure, again, where that's going with. And for the first episode, it wasn't very inspiring. Although it set things up, so maybe in the future ones, I'll be like, oh my gosh, why did I make that decision in the first game? But at the moment, there's not really much consequence to the consequences.
Someday you'll grow.
Presentation. I felt presentation of this game was probably its strongest attribute.
Definitely.
The game itself plays a lot with filters. Like in terms of how it actually looks, like it always has this kind of sunsetty type of look to it and feel to it, I felt, in a lot of the parts. I think that was also because of when you're actually playing through the game. It felt like towards the end of a day, so to say. I felt the graphics are really good. It's done in the Unreal Engine. They're not like super detailed, but they're detailed enough and they look pretty good. I liked the way the game looked.
Yeah, I mean, the art style isn't very, like, it's not hugely detailed, but that was definitely the style they were going for. And overall, I think it works pretty well, like it's meant to. It looks how they wanted it to look. And I actually don't mind the art style. I don't find it too bad. I'm considering what it is and how the game is.
Yeah. And also, actually, a thing I forgot to say was I liked the a lot of the times when they're trying to show you a point or an item of interest, they like do like an artistic scribble over it. They had like overlays on objects and stuff. It's almost like a
scrapbook.
Yeah, like a scrapbook type of look. And a lot of the photographs that you actually see in the game also, they have some sort of filter on them just to make them look a little bit different. I liked that because it made it. I don't know. To be honest with you, this whole game just felt kind of indie photography type of like vibe to it. That's what I felt. And speaking of that, the music, I really like the music. I'm into indie songs and bands like that, and I really enjoyed that. So that's why I felt this attribute of the game was the strongest for me, because I really enjoyed the way the game looked. I liked the music that they played.
Like, if you guys like Angus and Julia,
they're in there. So yeah, I mean that's what I felt about the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the art style. It was very scrapbooky. It felt like that's what they were going for. You're meant to feel, even like with the saving and the checking character prologues, it was done like you'd taken photos of them, like you'd put it in a scrapbook. So it very much goes for that scrapbook kind of look and feel. I quite enjoyed the style. The rest of it, definitely I liked with the music, where you would sort of come out into a scene and the music would play, and it would just fit very well with the scene and the whole gameplay. Well. I would definitely say that brought into it a lot more. It made it a lot more, I don't know, for me that added a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely helped a lot. It added to the situations, it added to the setting. It really set it up in a way that I don't think I've seen in many games. So it worked very well in this case. Also, our copy that we played glitched out, where just randomly the music stopped.
Sound,
everything was gone. We couldn't hear anything. We could still play, but we couldn't hear. But I haven't heard any other people complain about any glitches. So perhaps it was just us that experienced that. So yeah, that was a bit annoying. We'll probably put the parts that we played below, and you can check out the glitch there.
It's in episode 1.
In episode 1. So yeah, in episode 1 you'll see where it
episode 1,
out.
part 1. Sorry, by episode 1 they might get a bit confused. Part 1 of the playthrough of episode 1, near the beginning. That's exactly where it happens. So to end this review, closing statements. I felt this was a setup episode. Definitely, through and through. They were setting up the characters, their backstories. We didn't get a lot of information about Max herself, but I enjoyed it. I liked the presentation of it, how it felt. The gameplay itself was pretty simple, but I enjoyed it, and I personally would recommend it. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. I personally, like, my end in view comments again, the presentation is beautiful, it's wonderful, I enjoy it, I like the whole scrapbook feel. It's hit or miss for some people will enjoy it, some people probably won't, but overall I think it's a nice feel, a nice touch, and quite stands out on its own at the moment, especially in a genre that's quite dominated really by Telltale. So it's definitely it's a nice try to see something a bit more fresh, a bit more different. I really feel that the characters definitely in this episode did bring it down and let it down. I mean, for one as well, their dialogue is, I don't know anybody that speaks the way some of the dialogue they used. I don't know, maybe some people do, but my friends don't. So it made it a bit harder to relate to the youth in the game. and with that dialogue and the way they were, and it is very bland. It's a very slow moving episode, not much happens, but it is an introductory run, so because of that I'm gonna let it off on that. And I think it's got something to build on, and I think it could build on, and I think it could be something good. It'll be interesting to see. And I like all the photography hints. Like, for one, all the episodes are named after certain things to do with photographs, and there's a lot of photography lingo and things that if you do photography you might think, oh yeah, I know that and stuff. So if you like photography, definitely it's worth doing, like playing. So overall, I thought, yeah, it's a bit hit or miss, but I'm going to be generous. I was thinking of giving it a 5, but then I thought, it's the first episode. I think it's a good starting, a good base, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.